through our recovery plan. The Delta variant continues to be a risk, but by working together to stick to the basics, we can help to slow its spread. Choose outdoors, even if an indoor option is available. If inside, make sure it is well ventilated and avoid crowded spaces. And let's all keep hand washing, wearing our face coverings and keeping our distance, even outdoors. Thanks to the support of the Irish people, our vaccination programme continues to make great progress. And now, anyone aged 16 and over can register for a vaccine. The Economic Recovery Plan is helping people get back to work and supporting businesses. So let's protect this progress. For full details, go to gov.ie/recovery. Supported by the Government of Ireland.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Now, you're very welcome back. So we're returning to the Olympics. By the way, it's Kilkenny 17 points, Cork 15 points with 38 minutes in the clock at Croke Park in the All-Ireland hurling semi-final. But we are turning to reflect further on the achievement of Kellie Harrington. Gold medal for Ireland. Our Olympic show is with thanks to Indeed, proud partner of Team Ireland. Indeed believes the world works better when people are given every opportunity to unleash their true talents. #Talent Unleashed. Now, Michael Carruth will join us in a couple of moments' time. But first, Kieran Cunningham of the Irish Daily Star is with us. And sometimes, even in the ruthless world of sport, Kieran, good things can happen to good people. I think we saw that this morning.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because that's what stands out to me. That there's an old line about Joe Lewis that is a credit to his race, the human race. And you could say something similar about Kellie Harrington. Like, there's been all sorts of stuff said about the background and, what the North Inner City is like and what the North Inner City has had to deal with over the years. But, without getting overly sentimental or cliched about it, there's always been great people there. There's always people that are just so admirable in the way they face up to adversity and just get on with things. And, Kellie Harrington has that. And, it's an antidote to what we've seen. So often in sport, we were sold this thing that the intense competitor is the one we admire, like the non-smiling Roy Keane telling us we always had to aim higher, or Jim Gavin not showing any emotion when Dublin would win All-Ireland finals. And everybody can make their own choice about how they deal with it. But at the same time, it is refreshing to see somebody like Kellie Harrington, who clearly has enjoyed the whole experience so much. Like, her good humour has come out in all the interviews. It was her idea to bow at the opening ceremony, which none of the over 200 nations on that opening ceremony, nobody else did it. And she just hit the right note from day one. And she hit the right note on the last day. And I didn't expect her to win. That's being honest. I thought the Brazilian, Beatriz Ferreira, was just too strong and powerful and aggressive for her. And it was one of the greatest performances in Irish sport and one of the greatest days Irish sport has ever seen.
Yeah, and we should touch on the performance itself for a moment, because obviously everybody's just, so euphoric and dealing with the fallout, and the scenes at the house were incredible, and we'll come to those in a moment. But the fight itself, you go down in the first round at these games and generally at these boxing tournaments, and it's a longer road back, that's for sure, across the following rounds. She was 3-2 down after the first round, and from round 2 onwards, round 2 in particular, as you said, it was an extraordinary performance. Eric Donovan on RTE made the point that she really just she suddenly found her range in round 2. She found the perfect distance and she was able to land blows almost at will and get out of there as well. In the first round, I felt anytime she was landing a blow, she was taking 1 or 2 back.
Yeah. Well, that's something like Eric would tell you and Andy Lee would tell you, and a lot of people who really know and understand boxing or able to express what the sport is all about, is that it's a thinking person's sport. Like, to people who've never boxed, it often seems you just go in and you throw punches and, you land as many as you can, try and land more than your opponent. But you have to think, like, particularly in that fight today, that was a victory for Kellie Harrington's brain. Because the conventional wisdom was that for a reason. Like, all through this Olympics, it's been shown with the new judging system, if you lose the first round, you're going to, it's very unlikely you'll win the fight. And that's why I didn't think she would win, because Ferreira has this all-action, very aggressive style that throws a huge volume of punches. And even though boxing judges are supposed to judge on technique and skill and different criteria, that often wins them over. They often see they go with a busier boxer. So when she lost that first round, she had to be very careful then, because there was no room for error. Now, she had to pick her shots. She had to make sure her evasive skills were bang on. And that's something that all boxers coached by Zoran Tia are very proficient in. He's a brilliant evasive coach. And she got that, like, it reminded me of Katie Taylor's, her second round reminded me, because in 2012 it was 4 2-minute rounds. So Katie Taylor's third round was the one that won it for her. And her second round this morning was similar to Katie's third, in that both of them were really up against it in an Olympic final against a serious opponent, and they pulled it out. Because sometimes, you have very good coaches in the corner. But I remember Kenneth Egan saying this to me, that what held him back for years was listening to the coaches too much. Because if you're waiting for them to give you instructions all the time, you're reacting all the time. You're the guy, you're the person, you're the boxer in the ring. You have to decide what you're doing ultimately. And Kellie Harrington won that. She won that with the performance in that second round that will be replayed for a long time. Because I think Ferreira is the best boxer she's ever fought. And she is so deserving of this title. Like, I think it was a harder won lightweight title than Katie Taylor's. Katie had a very difficult find against Fuchigava, but the semi-final and the quarterfinal was straightforward. There was nothing straightforward about Kellie Harrington's route. She had a battle for this. Like the semi-final, she got the verdict, but it was a very, very tight verdict. She lost the first round today. Some of the Brazilian athletes supporting Ferreira booed the verdict at the end, but I think there was nothing to boo. She deserved to win that today, but she had to come from the depths of hell, as Carl Dennehy once used a phrase to describe Phil Healy. That was something special.
Because it would have been so easy to panic after round one. I mean, they will be well aware you lose round one, you're in trouble. And so you could have chased that fight very quickly, got into a brawl, and suddenly it's game over, because that's what her opponent thrives on, and she's so powerful. And instead, the composure to just, I'm going to pick off the deficit, punch by punch, moment by moment. 5-0 second round. So 3-2, 3 judges had the first round against Harrington, 2 had it in her favour, then 5-0 and 5-0, completely unanimous as well. I mean, I was a bit surprised the third round they all saw it that way, but I mean, it was still a comprehensive enough victory even in the third round. And it was quite striking. We'll have Michael Carruth with us in a couple of moments as well, Kieran. When he won, he just jumped up and down ecstasy, like his knees around his ears, just couldn't contain himself. I thought with Harrington there was an instant wave of emotion, tears, relief, just almost kind of flatlined by the whole thing, kind of almost crumpled with the emotion.
Yeah, it's a funny one, because I'd like to talk to Kellie about that sometime, because I think if you go back over Ireland's gold medals, like, often they're a reflection of the era, that they happened in. Like, I remember interviewing Ronnie Delaney for the 60th anniversary of his gold medal in Melbourne in '56. And he said one of the reasons it made such an impact was nobody had saw it. There was no television. It happened in the middle of the night. They heard it in the radio because of time difference. They heard it in the radio. They heard an Irishman getting to the front of the, what was regarded as a glamour race at the Olympics and winning it. So they had to imagine it. And it was actually days later, if not weeks later, that there was Pathé newsreel that they were able to watch in the cinemas. And it was a very bleak, depressed time in Ireland. And he said they'd give people a lift, the kind of lift that we talk about with Italia 90. But then if you fast forward to Michael Carruth, like, that was kind of after post-Italia 90, it's a different age. It did make a big impact, but this is the social media age. This is the 24/7 media age. That everybody, all the clips, like the O'Donovan's 5 years ago, all the clips of Kellie Harrington's videos quickly went viral. All the videos of her family, etc. So even though she was trying to block herself away from all that, the noise seeps through. You do get a feeling that suddenly your home place is on fire, and so many people are looking to. Watching you, and you talked about this a few hours ago, I think, Joe. Most people watching that fight or her fights at the Olympics have never seen her fight before. It's a very strange sport that way. Like, the same with, like, the best boxer at the Olympics from any country not to win a medal was Kurt Walker. Aidan Walsh won a medal. I guarantee you most sports fans in Ireland had never heard of Kurt Walker or Aidan Walsh two weeks ago. So it's very strange to suddenly be put on the line like that. Like, even though Kellie Harrington has been in the Late Late Show and she has a high profile, she's been in Tommy Tierney, she's been in all sorts of programs that got a lot of coverage over the years, most people have never seen her fight. Like, even she's only fought here twice in nearly 4 years. You know, and one of those was a warm-up behind closed doors for the Olympics. And a lot of the, you know, part of that was down to COVID. Part of it I would lay at the hands of the IABA, who should be arranging international matches more. And I hope they do after the Olympics, because now there is such a feel-good factor. People want to see her. And even if they have to go outdoors because of restrictions, why not go outdoors? Why not go to Daleyman Park or Parnell Park or wherever? You know, you get 2,000 or 3,000 people in. Sure, it'd be great.
Yeah. So I wonder now what she'll do, Kieran. I mean, not that I expect you to have the answer, but if we tease it out for a second, she's 31. This is the pinnacle. Does she hang on 3 years and try and go for another medal age 34? Does she think about her financial future and mull over, I'm sure, some professional offers and turn pro for 2-3 years and try and set herself up financially if she can? Or maybe she just retires and says, that's me done, and I sail off into the sunset, and what a way to go out. It's going to be very interesting. Do you have any strong sense either way?
Yeah, well, no, over the next few days, you'll hear and read a lot of guff about this, you know, about her earning potential, that she can do this, she can do that she'll end up making 100 grand this year, 250,000 next year, whatever. And you take all that with a large dollop of salt. Like, we've seen that in the past. Like, Michael will be on a few minutes. And all that talk was around Michael as well. And I think he did have a very strong year financially after the Olympics. You know, he went pro game didn't work out. You know, he was working in a carpet warehouse. He was in the Dole for a while. Like, often, you know, these things don't work out for you. Like, Kellie can go pro, but bar Katie Taylor, most female pros don't make much money at all. You know, it's a very, and as things stand, she would be in the same weight division as Katie Taylor. I know there are different belts she can go for. Katie's not going to go on forever. I would like her to stay in the amateur setup. Like, there's a medal bonus. Like, it's not clear how much she'll get, but like, as far as I know, it's a 5-figure sum in the low 5 figures. So that will help, and she will get more sponsors now. She will do better financially. You know, there's an argument. She's on the top podium grant of 40,000 with Sport Ireland. That podium grant has been the same for a long, long time now. You know, there's a strong argument for increasing it. You know, particularly for people who are, you know, like Paul O'Donovan, who's, you know, medalled twice at the Olympics, with Kellie Harrington, who's Olympic champion. But, you know, you go into the pro game, and no, I don't want to get into them, but there's so many sharks there, you don't want to see her join up with. I know, whereas it's only 3 years to Paris 2024. You know, it looks pretty certain that Kurt Walker is going pro. Like, a lot of the, judging in previous years, a lot of the boxing team in Tokyo, most of them probably won't be around in a couple of years. So it'd be great for continuity's sake if she stayed on, and because she's a standard bearer and a role model. I know it's something that's always thrown out there. You know, when a lot of people are talked of as role models in sport, really aren't. But Kellie is. Like, people admire her so much. So for the sake of the sport, like, this is a great moment for sport that has taken such a battering at amateur and professional level here for a long time. And for the sake of the sport, I'd love her to drive on.
I saw you, we don't need to overly go down this route because it can be a bit tricky, but I saw you with a degree of relish, I think, noting that MTK had been on to celebrate her and support her, and I think the responses they received told them in no uncertain terms that the Panorama documentary had been noted.
Yeah, like, I just touch on this briefly because I don't want to take anything away from the Kellie Harrington story. That's what really matters today. But, you know, the face of Irish boxing for too long has been MTK Global and its founder, Daniel Kinnan. That is what too many people are associating Irish boxing with. And it's completely wrong. It's completely unfair to the great people in the sport here. Kellie Harrington is a far better reflection of the great work that the sport does. And, you know, she comes from a community that has been hit very hard by drugs and crime and gangland crime. So I'm delighted that she's the face of it now. And you're going to have politicians jumping on this as well. Like, it's 9 years since Katie Taylor won gold. Back then, her boxing club was Bray Boxing Club, didn't have a toilet. Like, Kellie Harrington's club has one toilet for all the boys and girls, men and women that use it. You know, boxing clubs all around the country are losing their premises. Like, the sport needs help. It's doing such great work in deprived areas. And all the people now that are trying to get reflected glory out of it or like MTK jumping on what they see as a bandwagon for a bit of goodwill. I was glad to see the kickback at them.
It was very moving, I have to say, watching her reaction, first of all. A bit like Katie Taylor. I mean, I can count on a handful of times that I have had tears watching sport, and whatever it is about these boxers and these two women at the Olympics, they seem to prompt something. And then it was also very moving just watching the scenes on Portland Row, and the family had asked for privacy. We had Joel on, her brother, earlier on. People would have seen the note up on the doorbell almost, and in effect it was saying, look, during the fight, can we just have these couple of minutes privacy, and then, you know, we'll have the party or whatever afterwards. And so the big screen was erected at the bottom of the street, and then, you know, when the result comes in, you just see, well, media, of course, but you just see the neighbours and the friends and the well-wishers sprinting up. I likened it to Black Friday, where they open the shop door and everybody charges through. And you see the Harrington family, you know, yanking open their own door and running out themselves. And the brother has the mother, Yvonne, who's been out in the back garden up in his back, and Dad Christie trying to open champagne. And you could see like the bond and the community, and obviously people who are very, very close as neighbours, you know, grabbing each other and just trying to make sense of this amazing thing that's happened. They were some of the most beautiful moments I think I've seen in sport in a very long time. It was just really gorgeous, really lovely, and, you know, worth 1,000 Premier League matches. Like our family, you know, they just come across so well. Like Joel has done so many interviews now, and, you know, you'd struggle to write about a story like Kellie Harrington's because you want to do it justice. And what he said, you know, he's come out with the best lines. He's come out with better lines than any journalist or any commentator or any broadcaster or any pundit covering this story. You know, he's been exceptional. You know, but, you know, there's Joel, like there's Kellie's partner, Mandy. You know, there's so many people involved in this that I'm delighted for. And like, there's things like Kellie Harrington is a gay woman in North Inner City who works part-time as a cleaner on the front line in a psychiatric hospital. You know, isn't that a great hero to have at a time, you know, given the time we've lived through? You know, like when Michael Carruth won his gold in 1992, homosexuality was criminalised in Ireland. It was only legalised a year later. And nobody has ever made any fuss about Kellie being a gay woman. You know, it's completely accepted. You know, she comes from a community that people think would be conservative or bleak, but they haven't. They've got on with it. Like, everything is fine. Like, Kellie said, this is my partner, Mandy. No, everything's great. And say that. The family said, yeah, fine. Well, that's great. She seems lovely. You know, so I just think she's exceptional. Like, and what she represents is exceptional. And if she heard the kind of stuff, me coming out with this kind of stuff, she said, would you stop with that old shite? Like, she would have no time for it. But I think she has touched on something that has resonated with people. Like, she is representing something that is bigger than her sport. And, you know, it's been quite interesting even, and we touched on it earlier on in the show, to almost watch her come to grips with what she's achieved and what she's achieving. Like, at one stage she was talking after winning the bronze medal, and she was almost saying, like, sometimes I feel like I'm lucky to be here, you know, like this imposter syndrome. And then even she had to rationalise with herself and say, well, I suppose you can't be lucky to win a bronze medal, you know, so maybe I'm all right, actually. And she has been a late developer, and that should be stressed here. She's 31 years of age, and so even by her mid-20s, she was barely in the high-performance unit. I think she only got funding maybe post-2016, 2017 or so, after doing well at the World Championships. Before that, she was going to Kazakhstan herself. And Dennis Walsh had a piece today in the Sunday Times where she had to save up her social welfare checks because she had cut back on hours work to try and train, and she was having to blow all her kitty on food because she didn't like the food out there. And it was real... You know, like, this is real dedication here. You're putting a lot of your life on hold. You're certainly not saving for a house or anything when you're doing this kind of stuff in your mid-20s. So I would suspect, as it's gone on, she's been amazed at how well she's done, like world champion and then now Olympic gold medalist. And this isn't kind of Katie Taylor, the prodigy, and winning this games was the, you know, fulfillment of what she was destined to do for a long time. This has been like a really lovely late flourish, which has probably caught them all to an extent off guard.
Yeah, because that's a crucial difference. I was going to mention that, like because from her teenage years, everybody knew Katie Taylor was special. Like, she was winning European and World Championships from a very young age. She was on top funding for Sports Council then, which became Sport Ireland, from a very young age. So she went to the Olympics as a hot favourite. She would have gone to the 08 Olympics as a hot favourite if boxing was allowed in then. But Kellie Harrington's story is so different. Like, she was, as Dennis wrote today, I think €188 a week social welfare 5 years ago. But it's a credit to her, but also what it is, it shows the value of coaching. Like, it shows the value of exceptional coaching, because 5 years ago she wasn't anywhere near the level that she is now. And like, going back to the way she thought her way through that fight and thought her way out of a very tricky situation, really top-class coaching, is a big part of that. And particularly Zora Antia. But Zora isn't the only one. There's a lot of other coaches around that HB unit. But, Zora is the guy they call the genius. And he has been a transformative figure, as much as Billy Walsh and Gary Keegan were at the start of the high-performance unit. But, that's why I think it is hard for her to let it all sink in, because, Katie Taylor, she talked about this, how she dreamed of winning the Olympics when she was 13 or 14, and it wasn't even an Olympic sport. I don't think Kellie Harrington had those dreams. Like, I don't think she ever thought she was good enough.
No.
And I think it's only when the last couple of years, when she became world champion, etc., the penny dropped. I am good enough.
Yeah, because I think Joe Stack put it to her at some stage. Michael Carruth, Katie Taylor, now you. You're in the pantheon of immortals, and she's like, I don't know what to say to that. Like, geez, Michael Carruth, Katie Taylor, and suddenly her. I mean, that's an amazing thing to get her head around. You mentioned Zora. Sorry, I was. Well, I was just going to say on Zora, totally agree. And Sean McGoldrick had a great piece. I'm familiar with the Zora story, but there were just certain details about, like, the randomness of how they found Zora, which I hadn't been fully aware of, where, like, they set up the high performance unit obviously in 03, and it's Gary Keegan, but I think it's a Don O'Sullivan, businessman into his boxing as well. He was invited over to Georgia to work with some local referees, and said he spotted Zora across the gym working, and he said it was like seeing, you just see a good golf swing and you just know someone's a bit special. And they sounded him out, and he mentioned it to Gary Keegan, and Keegan did his own research, and it turned out, that Zora, right through the former Soviet Union time, always had the highest number of representatives on the actual Soviet Union team. That actually he had been doing a phenomenal job with everyone he had come into contact with. And they brought him over initially on a short-term thing. He has since had another child here. They're all Irish citizens. His wife moved over after about 2 years. They realised they were here for the long haul. And, I mean, Billy Walsh is a huge loss, but Zora really is, it seems, as good as anyone in the world. I mean, absolutely exceptional. Once he's there, you feel there'll always be another Kellie Harrington, or the possibility of one.
Yeah, and other countries have tried to poach him at different times. So it's very important he's looked after. Like, I hope he's in a good bonus for an Olympic gold, because he fully deserves it. And this, I was in Rio 5 years ago, and we remember what Rio was like for boxing. Like, it was such a grim story to cover. The tone was set, the day before the opening ceremony, when we were at the draw, for the boxing draw, and it was the word seeped through that Michael O'Reilly, who was tipped to medal at middleweight, had failed a drugs test. And from there, we went through all the things that happened to Michael Conley, Katie Taylor, Paddy Barnes, etc. 2 boxers then were done for betting on boxing, which you're not supposed to do. Like, the whole team was a mess. And I felt really sorry for Zora, because Zora had been pushed into the limelight when Billy left the year before. His English was still fairly rudimentary, and he is a boxing coach. Like, he's not an administrator, he's not a manager. He wasn't given the support he should have been given then, and he was thrown into the eye of the storm, because remember us going to Zora and John Conlon and Eddie Bolger, who was there at the time, looking for a reaction to Michael O'Reilly's drugs test, and they went straight onto the bus and didn't say a word, because they'd only just got word themselves. Like, that's how badly it was handled. Nobody had bothered telling them this had happened. So I'm delighted, because he had such a terrible Olympic experience first time with Ireland 5 years ago, that I'm delighted he goes home now with this glow of having delivered something special.
Yes, you could have seen him up in sticks 5 years ago after that Games.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. No, because anybody would have jumped on him. Like I'm sure Billy would have taken him.
Yeah.
So I said Billy would love to have him in the US. So and
I'm sure.
GB were sniffing around him before.
Were they? Yeah. Okay, I didn't realise that.
And they had a great Olympics. No, they've a very strong team now. So
I'm sure.
But even still, they valued Zorro.
I'm sure Billy's checked in to see how you enjoying it. How's it all going? Everything okay? Anything we could do for you? And that's the thing. I mean, look, he's hot property, and it's lovely to see him come home now. And God, it would have been terrible if 2016 was his kind of swan song. So hopefully he's here for many years to come. So that's a wrap on the Olympics, actually. It's come and gone. What have you made of the whole thing, and not just from a parochial Irish point of view? It feels, with every Games now, I expect there to be scandal and to be a huge number of doping stories or some big controversy. I suppose the closest thing we got to a controversy was maybe Simone Biles. But genuinely, I think if you take Piers Morgan out of the Simone Biles situation, that wasn't a controversy. It was overwhelming support. Good games, bad games. I mean, the time difference is a factor, obviously, when you're watching from here. I don't suspect many people had the pleasure of watching the rowers live, for instance, winning their gold. So how do we remember Tokyo aside from Harrington?
Well, it's enjoyable. Like, it's strange because it's the first one I haven't been on since 1996. So it's strange going back to watching it on TV again after so long. And I have to say, I enjoyed a lot of the RT coverage. I do think slightly it could be going too much of the BBC way, that is all about medals and Irish. We still have to be a bit more questioning in that, if you look at track and field, like, so much has been said about the shoes and the track, but a lot of what we saw was so extraordinary that I still think you can't get away from the evidence of previous games that indicate between 10 and 40% are doping. So you cannot say suddenly we have a clean games when you've had a long layoff through COVID with not as much testing. That probably, would have made it easier for people to microdose and work towards the games. So those things pan out over time. In 5 years' time, we might look at them in a very different way. I think TV made it look better than it probably was like in person, because it's very much geared towards being a TV event. And watching on TV, even the way the stadium is framed, the athletic stadium, you didn't notice the absence of the crowd as much as you would have if you're sitting in the stands. But, I've seen pictures like of the fan parks that were built and of the empty arenas and stuff. And that makes me sad because Olympics, what was it? Donald Cusick was an RT yesterday on the hurling coverage, and he talked about, hurling without fans is like bread without butter. And, that's generally the way sport is. Like, I think you do need a packed arena. Like, imagine what that would have been like for Kellie Harrington if it was any way similar to what Katie Taylor experienced in London. When you had an arena erupting, when she won. But unfortunately, didn't get that because it was very different. But, up to, say, 2 months ago, I wasn't sure the Olympics would go ahead. So overall, I'm glad for what I do see, what it has given people, and I'm glad it has, and I've enjoyed a hell of a lot of it. It's still a question, like you would have questions with any Olympics. Like the nature, it's part of human nature to cheat, and there will have been people there who cheated and they've been lauded. But it's never as much as the most cynical people think. Most athletes in all sports are still clean. There are still people to celebrate, and we have a few of them here.
Yeah, which is great. Kieran Cunningham, Chief Sportswriter with the Irish Daily Star. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
No problem.
We'll take a short break. Kilkenny 22 points, Cork 28 points is where we are at Croke Park with 6 minutes to go. Actually, Kilkenny have just scored, so Cork lead by 5 with 6 minutes to go.
This weekend on News Talk, we've teamed up with the Insolvency Service of Ireland to offer insight and advice on debt and financial struggles. Find out how the ISI can help at newstalk.com/tips.
Afternoons are easy with insuremyvan.ie, Ireland's low-cost van insurance specialist. Get your business back on the road with Insure My Van's best price guarantee. For super savings, visit insuremyvan.ie. City Financial Marketing Group Limited, trading as insuremyvan.ie, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Sean, what's that thing going round the garden?
That is our new Husqvarna Automower.
Automower?
Yeah, it's a robotic lawnmower from Husqvarna. Cuts the grass automatically, has GPS tracking and an app. Even works in the rain. I just thought, why spend time cutting grass when I could spend it with the family?
Great! You can put the dinner on, so...
No can do, love. Have to paint the man cave.
Husqvarna Automower. Never mow again. Learn more at husqvarna.ie.
you have a TV licence. Inspectors are calling to unlicensed homes and businesses. If you don't, that can mean prosecution and a fine of up to €1,000. It's the law, so get yours at tvlicence.ie or at any post office. Brought to you by the Government of Ireland.
How far could you cycle over 10 days? Well, take part in the All-Ireland Cycle Challenge and find out. Get on your bike in aid of cancer research between August the 12th and 22nd. Upload your cycles, win competitions